political strategists are their own worst enemy. They always want to limit. Look, I think this is what, if Biden is angry that he does not, that this isn't his convention, you should blame everybody around him. You could have set the country up over the last 3 years to get used to Grandpa Joe if they let Grandpa Joe out there all the time. And look, over time, people got used.
The debate was a shocker for people.
Right, because they hadn't seen any version of it. But maybe if they had seen it, there would have been more tolerance for it. And you do exactly what Tara said. They are making it so that the first interview she does
will be so much pressure.
Becomes a huge pressure.
That's a panel of political shills on NBC blaming Democrats for the poor reception Biden received after the first debate and claiming that they may be setting Harris up for the same fall. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and boy is it funny how establishment media will simultaneously acknowledge stuff like this while conveniently ignoring the role they played in all of it. I mean, not only were they complicit in covering up Biden's blunders, but they're actively gaslighting the American public about the person replacing him.
No news conferences for Harris, no sit-down interviews. The questions, the coverage hasn't been tough enough.
Tom?
Yeah. She's doing interviews with content creators today instead of,
So let's call it the Harris honeymoon, right? When does the Harris honeymoon end? Because at some point she's going to have to sit down. She's going to have to do a serious interview. She's going to have to go unscripted, maybe even a full news conference, but it has to happen.
Oh, absolutely has to happen. And, we're starting to see her talk to reporters. Like yesterday, she spoke to some reporters in Pittsburgh, and they asked her, how are you going to pay for your economic plan, right? And she didn't really make a lot of sense. She just kept saying over and over again, it would be a return on investment. It would be a return on investment. Yeah. She said it 4 times over a, 30, 60 second, and it just wasn't very strong. You could tell she's a little rusty when she's not on her teleprompter, and she hasn't always done well in the past when in a one-on-one, when you saw what happened with your colleague Lester Holt. And so I think that this is actually a disservice to her. They're really building this up to be a very momentous moment when she finally sits down with a network anchor, and she could make one wrong move, and that's the entire news cycle.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree that liberals will have another moment where they're blindsided by how incompetent their candidate is once Harris sits down for an unscripted interview or debate. However, I just think it's not entirely Democrats that are to blame. I mean, people don't just think she's something she's not because she's actively avoiding interviews. They think she's more capable than she is because the media keeps running interference for her and lying about her record. That woman said if Harris does a bad interview, it's all the news will be talking about. What she forgot to add, though, is that it'll be them trying to spin her performance into a positive, just like they did with that I'm speaking moment during her debate with Pence in 2020.
And you do exactly what Tara said. They are making it so that the first interview she does
will be so much pressure.
Becomes a huge pressure. I'm not as convinced they're going to do the big sit-down with Chuck, a traditional network. I think you'll see them with more what I would call allied media.
Right.
And I think that's more likely.
And that's what Joe Biden did, yeah.
And that's what Donald Trump does. He's not going to unfriendly places anymore.
Look, we come from this.
He doesn't anymore.
Obviously, we're all reporters here. We want to ask questions. We want to inform our viewers and our readers. So in this sense, we do have a dog in this fight. But I do want to ask you, could this really happen? I mean, early voting is going to start very soon.
Yeah.
Could early voting start without her having really been scrutinized by the media at all?
Well, it depends on your definition of scrutinizing.
Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, all we have is her last campaign.
Right.
And you would think this is something that I wouldn't want if I was the Harris campaign.
Right.
But the campaign stuff you don't want out there. Paints her much more liberal.
And do it now, before you're close to November.
Right. So it does, in that sense, that's surprising. But, the way everything gets weaponized on social media, there's a reason why, unfortunately, why you see fewer and fewer elected officials sitting down with truly sort of dispassionate media, I call it.
Yeah.
They won't do it because the fear is not the questions we ask. The fear is the one bad answer they get that gets weaponized and used over and over again. And it's in her head.
Yeah.
She has always had this issue because Fox, early on in this vice presidency, took every wrong moment and just amplified.
You've got to love how the people complaining about Fox News and conservative media highlighting all of Harris's gaffes are the same ones still pushing crap like Trump told people to inject bleach or allowing Democrats to repeat the fine people on both sides lie over and over without being corrected. I mean, Biden did it again at the DNC, and I didn't see them scrambling to point out that it's been debunked. Because the sad fact of the matter is that's not their job. Chuck Todd essentially revealed what their job is here. He wasn't complaining about the dishonesty of Democrats, he was lamenting the fact that they aren't giving the media enough time to spin the narrative and gaslight people into lowering their standards enough to think that a demented old man or an incompetent radical like Harris are acceptable candidates. But let me know what you think. Will the media honestly cover Harris's inevitable blunders during unscripted debates and interviews? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!